Hello and welcome to the second video for GCSE Biology B5 and B6 revision. This is session 2. Now, in this video we'll be looking at human defence responses, plant defence responses and vaccination. To start off, I would like you to complete this do now task based on the last video. Please pause the video to answer the questions. You should only be watching now if you have answered all 3 questions, and the answers are on screen now for you to mark. So we're first going to have a look at human defence responses. We have here a person, and we're going to see how they can stop themselves becoming ill. The first defence that they have is through the skin. And the skin acts as a physical barrier to stop pathogens coming in. Now, there are routes into the body that pathogens can get through. If there's a break in the skin, you can get straight into the bloodstream. It can also go in through the nose and mouth. If we're going through the nose and mouth, we can get into the stomach and we can get into the lungs. Now, within our nose and down our trachea, which leads into our lungs, we have some special cells. So we'll have a look at those now. So we have zoomed in on part of the trachea, and we've got the cells lining it. Now, these cells are ciliated cells. They have cilia on them. They also produce mucus. So we have mucus on it as well. And the mucus and the cilia work together to prevent an infection. The mucus will trap dirt and pathogens. So the mucus will trap dirt and pathogens, and the cilia will sway the mucus up and out of the trachea. Sway that mucus out of the trachea. It can then either be coughed or sneezed out, or it can be swallowed and go down into the stomach. So what I'm drawing here is the stomach. The stomach. And the stomach is one of our organs. It is involved in digesting food. It also contains hydrochloric acid. I'll change the colour of that one. So it will contain hydrochloric acid. So we have hydrochloric acid. And the hydrochloric acid will destroy any pathogens that come in there. And these defence systems help stop any pathogens entering our body and making us ill. Now, there are times that pathogens can get into our body to cause harm. So in this case here, we have a bacteria has got into the bloodstream. Once it is in there, it can release the toxins that can cause harm. To counteract that, our body has white blood cells. You forgive me, I'm drawing them in purple. The white blood cells are blood cells, they're in the blood, but they have a nucleus. They can defeat pathogens or destroy pathogens in 3 ways. The first way we have is phagocytosis. And phagocytosis they will engulf the pathogen. Pathogen will be engulfed and it gets broken down. Parts of the pathogen can then be reused within the body itself. We can also produce antitoxins. Antitoxins will counteract the toxins released by the bacterium. So if we release the toxins from the bacterium, let's change to red. They will be released and will cause harm to the body. The white blood cell will release antitoxins, which will come along and counteract those antitoxins. Our final way is that they will produce antibodies. The antibodies will mark the pathogen for phagocytosis. So they will produce antibodies that will come out from the white blood cell and will mark the pathogen for phagocytosis, so it can be engulfed and destroyed. So you've now seen how our bodies can defend ourselves from illnesses, either from stopping pathogens entering or for what happens when they are inside our bodies. I would now like you to answer these 5 questions, so please pause the video to answer these questions. You should now only be watching if you have answered the questions. The answers are on screen now. We're now going to have a look at some plant defences. So we have here a flower, a rose, and you might notice if you've ever seen a rose bush before that they have thorns on them. Now this is a fairly typical plant defence. Some plants as well may have little tiny hairs on their leaves as well. And the reason for these is they are protection. They are to stop them being eaten by animals. So they are to stop animals eating them. And it's a mechanical defence. So physically they stick out, they don't change, they're just there. They've grown as part of the plant. Now other times some of the leaves may have a special adaptation. So let's have a look at one. We have a leaf here and an insect is going to land on it. There we go. We've got some wings as well. The insect will land on it and straight away, as soon as it is touched, the leaf will curl up. The leaf will curl up and the insect will be thrown away. So the leaf will curl up. So the leaves can curl up on some plants, either to throw the insect off so it doesn't get eaten, or in the case of other ones, to trap it within the plant so it can digest it to get any amino acids out of it to help with its growth. Now, not all plants have leaves that can curl up. Some of them need other protection from insects that may try to eat them. So we've got our insect here. It's going to try and suck out whatever is inside. A lot of leaves, well, all leaves, have a waxy cuticle. Let's change the colour to the yellowy colour on the top there. They have a waxy cuticle to help protect the leaf. Obviously that is also there for protection from water as well, but also to help stop any insects getting that lovely, lovely glucose that is made there in photosynthesis. So these are all mechanical things that the plants can do. They've got the thorns and hairs to stop animals eating them. They've got the leaves that will curl up to throw insects off, and they've got the waxy cuticle to provide that layer of protection. Another thing that plants can do is if they have insects or any kind of bug coming towards them, but they don't want to eat them, they can release toxins or poisons. They get detected that they are being eaten, they will release toxins. That is released into the air, and any insects that are around will fly away from it. That is how they can defend against predators, so anything that may be eating them. I'm calling them predators, probably wrong, but anything that might want to try and eat them. Obviously, we've seen as well that plants can get affected by pathogens, so things that cause diseases, such as bacterium. A number of plants are able to produce antibiotic chemicals. So we have here bacteria. It's going to try and get into the plant. The plant can produce antibacterial chemicals. That can be used to destroy the bacterium that might try and infect them. We'll have a look at this in the next video, as well as we're getting a lot of new ideas for new plants, or for new medicines from plants as to how they can treat new diseases. There are now 5 questions on the screen. Please pause the video to complete these questions. You should now only be watching if you have answered all 5 questions. The answers are on screen now. Please mark your answers and correct any mistakes. We're now going to have a look at deficiencies in plants and how that can lead to illness as well. Now we have here a plant, and it is a very healthy plant. It's got the right amount of nutrients and ions from the soil. It's getting a good amount of sunlight and water for photosynthesis so that it can grow and perform protein synthesis, so we get that growth going on. There's no infection in there, so it is a healthy plant. Now, there can be cases where plants have a deficiency. We'll have a look at one now. So we have a plant here that is deficient in nutrients. It has low nitrates and low magnesium ions. It gets the nitrates and magnesium ions from the soil. As we look at the plant, if we compare it, we can see that it is shorter. We would say that it has stunted growth. It has not grown as well. It also has yellow leaves. So a plant that is deficient in minerals will have stunted growth and yellow leaves. And these can also be caused by various diseases as well. Now, the 2 ions we need to know about are nitrate ions and magnesium ions. So nitrate ions are used for protein synthesis. Nitrate ions are used for protein synthesis. A lack of nitrate ions can lead to restricted growth due to the lack of protein synthesis. It can also lead to the leaves turning yellow or green. So without protein synthesis, we get stunted growth and we have less chlorophyll, so the leaves turn yellow or a pale green. The other ion we need to know about is magnesium ions. And magnesium ions are used for the production of chlorophyll. So magnesium ions are used to produce chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the site of photosynthesis. Chlorophyll is the site of photosynthesis. If we have no chlorophyll, we have no photosynthesis occurring. No photosynthesis, we get no glucose being made. Now you might be wondering, how do farmers decide what mineral or ions a plant is deficient in? And they can do that by either using a handbook that a lot of farmers will have on their own experience, and they can decide what deficiency a plant has. So, for example, stunted growth and yellow leaves will mean it's likely a nitrate deficiency. Just yellow leaves will likely mean a magnesium deficiency. Now, these signs can also be signs of diseases in plants as well, whether rose black spot or tobacco mosaic virus, or it could be the sign of another bacterial infection or viral infection. And for that, farmers will often test the plants in a laboratory or use home testing kits that include monoclonal antibodies. We look at monoclonal antibodies in the next video. There are now 4 questions for you to answer. Please pause the video to answer the questions. You should now only be watching if you've answered all 4 questions. The answers are on screen now. You can pause the video to check your answers. We're now going to have a look at vaccination and how that helps to protect against diseases. So, making a vaccine, we take either a dead or inactive form of the pathogen and inject it into a person. And we can inject that into the person. The dead or inactive version of the pathogen is now inside the person. We are now inside the bloodstream. So we are now inside the blood. So this is one of our blood vessels. Inside, obviously, we have red blood cells. Let's draw that again, that was terrible. We have red blood cells. And we have white blood cells. We then have a dead or inactive version of the pathogen. So we'll just go for a bit of the bacterium here. We only need part of it. We only need the part that we recognise. Now you'll remember that there are 3 ways that white blood cells can destroy pathogens. We have phagocytosis, which is where we engulf them. We have the production of antitoxins to counteract the toxins produced by bacteria, or we have antibodies. And that's what we're going to be looking at now. Now, our antibodies are produced to recognize or on recognition of the pathogen, and they will clump them together and mark them for phagocytosis. Once we've come into contact with a pathogen, we can store that antibody forever. So we come in, we recognize the antibody or the pathogen. We will produce antibodies. These are our antibodies. Once the pathogen has gone, these antibodies will disappear. They will no longer be needed. They'll be broken down and reused for other things. But our body will make something called a memory cell. That memory cell will remain in the blood. It will remain in the blood for as long as is needed. If we come into contact with the pathogen again, the memory cell which we have here, will divide by mitosis to make lots more memory cells. All of these memory cells can produce the correct antibodies. So we get lots of the antibodies being produced that can allow us to fight off whatever illness it is we have or have been exposed to without becoming ill. So we can now fight off the disease without becoming ill. And it does take some time to build up this immunity. We often need 2 of the same vaccine to boost that immunity and to boost the number of memory cells. There are now 4 questions for you to answer. Please pause the video to answer these questions. You should now only be watching if you've answered the questions. The answers are on screen now. Please pause the video to mark your answers and correct any mistakes. Thank you very much for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.